Helo agus fáilte go trí seascad in program ag BBC Alba hadal go crées cíalach an bharrachd an in Spórs na Alba. Is me Iona Ballantyne agus ha mí toiltear ra go bhfuil Ard Choidse skipa ball-coise Spartans Debbi McCulloch ar colrúm sin stiùidio. Ag program na heiche noch le ball-coise an ban a tilleadh version suúrairs gona goethe go bhíráin an an SWPL a hin. As sin brown cluicheadair eadar-nàiseanta a Honk Kong Toni Hu, we gana bhí a cluichar son skipa Queen's Park, agus cluinnidh sin bhfuil Megan Keith in gana Albany ága a sear an an bharrachd. Debbi, welcome back to 360.
Thank you, great to be here as ever.
It's so good to have you back. Now, it is good news. We do finally have a date of SWPL 1 returning, but there are a few things to kind of navigate through at the same time. So for Spartans, how do you feel?
Yeah, fantastic to be back and to get the players and the staff back on the pitch. You know, I think this second lockdown has been even harder than the first lockdown. The whole novelty of Zoom sessions wore off pretty early on, and everyone was desperate to get back on the pitch. So we're delighted that there's, you know, been a formal announcement made yesterday that means that, you know, the league can start, we can return to pre-season training, get the players in the best possible physical condition we can, and take things from there. But like you say, there are some challenges potentially down the road that we might face. But you know, as ever, we've tried to be positive, have a kind of blue sky type of thinking attitude towards all the challenges that we've faced over the last 12 months, and we'll continue to do that as a club.
Well, that's the thing, you have come through so much in the past 12 months, all these obstacles have come up and you've navigated through them. When we spoke just as football was suspended in January, and at that point you were quite happy that the decision had been taken out of your hands because you've got players who work full-time, who are studying full-time, they live with vulnerable family members and they're travelling around the country playing each week, they're training most nights of the week. So at that point it was quite good it had been taken out of your hands. From this development and returning to play, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, back in January it was difficult. The new variant obviously was causing major issues in the country. The levels of infection and transmission were so high that as a club, as a group of players and staff, we were really concerned about everyone's safety, and it was very confusing in terms of the messages you were given. You know, we weren't playing back in March, but the numbers were a lot higher in January. So we were a wee bit worried about how that could be given any credibility with regards to how many people were testing on a daily basis. But now, you know, obviously numbers have reduced dramatically within the country. There's still obviously the odd hotspot there, here and there, but certainly in Edinburgh, you know, the numbers per 100,000 are extremely low and have been very low for quite a wee while. So it's great to be back on the pitch. There's extra precautions being put in place in terms of the players and staff all being PCR tested on a weekly basis, which I think gives people a level of confidence. However, you know, they could go to Morrison's the next day and potentially touch something and become infected, but at least we'll then know about it and be able to give them the support that they require if that does happen. So positive feeling around it, less concerned. And as long as we all follow the protocols like we did previously, then I've got no doubt that everybody will stay as safe as possible.
Well, it is great to have football back because it has been so long. I mean, by the time it comes to April and the date to return, it'll be almost 5 months since the last game. So it's been a huge period of time. And I know for you personally, with Spartans, you juggle so much. What is on your plate just now?
Everything. And there's more than one plate. I'm spinning a lot of plates. No, I mean, you know, going through the whole testing procedure is something that's new. Everything else is relatively similar to what it was before. So you have all the protocols and the equipment available. So that's quite easy to implement to be able to get everyone back on the pitch. But it's also looking ahead to, you know, we've got a 4-week pre-season period. Ideally, probably would like that to be a wee bit longer due to the amount of time that the players have been idle from football. Football fitness is very different to general fitness, and you can't get that just from doing a Zoom call or the girls going out and dribbling a ball. Or it's a very different environment, a different fitness that they return to. And then obviously a 5-week period to fit the first 7 fixtures in, and then hopefully, you know, a 4-week period to fit the next 7 fixtures in, because obviously a champion and a runner-up needs to be declared before the kind of beginning of June, around about that time. So challenging in so many different areas, but as ever, we'll get it done, and we'll get it done well. You will get it done, I know that for sure. But what is the feeling throughout the league? Because there are teams in the league with a lot more money than others. How do you come to equal ground on this in terms, like PCR testing, it costs so much? Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag. You know, everyone's at different stages in terms of their journey as a club, and I think everybody within SWPL 1 respect that. However, every single club has different agendas as well, and different targets to meet and different pressures. So trying to have a holistic approach is really important, and that open-mindedness, that it's not just only about your patch. You have to think about everybody as a whole and how we can support each other, because I think everyone's been through a lot in the last 12 months. Everybody's had to work extremely hard to once again get to this point, to get everybody back on the pitch. So I think you have to be mindful of that. But, you know, it's easier for some teams to be able to pay for testing than it is for others. So we just need to be understanding and come to a kind of a common vision and goal that's achievable for all the clubs within the league. Well, that's, I mean, SWPL 2, they're still suspended. There's no word yet on when they might return. SWPL 1, like we know, has the date now. But in terms of women's football, how do you feel like it's been treated in comparison to the men's game? Yeah, I think. I mean, I watched when Lauren Montgomery of Glasgow City was here getting interviews, and I think she used the word frustrated over about 50 times. And I think I would use the similar word of frustration to describe how it's been. I think, you know, we need to look at that once this is all kind of moved on and everything's been kind of confirmed, and for the start of the new season, where we start with a kind of blank page almost. But, you know, I think there's definitely an equality issue. I think, you know, there needs to be representation on the SFA board for women's football. And it's things that we've spoken about for a very long time. This pandemic and COVID-19 has only highlighted them and brought them to the forefront of discussions. So a lot of change is required, in my opinion. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Debbie. There is so much more to talk about it, so we will come back to this soon. Ba Toni Ho riamh a géirí ball-coise chluich an dúi chéile, agus hain dóchas gon brosnaí duine eile a Honk Kong a leithe chéile gheanú. Sin is corach gon roi cho tollaithe glúis at go Queen's Park and sin SWPL ya an seasonsa.
It's actually translate in Cantonese is little sister, like the little one. Yeah, because in the past, when I first played football, I joined the football team with my sisters, 2 elder sisters. So I'm the little one. So the coach just decided to call me that. In Scotland, they just call me Toni.
Ba Toni Ho wang tung dúnan son bhí a cluich ball-coise h-aon, agus thuaidí an corm sin a dhéanú nó de glúisi a Alba eadar-nàiseanta.
In Scotland, the most interesting thing is that the people here is so welcoming. So it doesn't put me in a situation that I feel like the outsider. Like so besides, I can really learn a lot from football.
Bei Toni an tréisibte a Hong Kong a haid cluich gan san SWPL. Le h-aon cluicheadair an Clevarnic Vicky Chung agus Chung Cheng Hang is cluich gan roia.
I actually came to visit them last year in March. So originally I'm planning to like play in their team for a few training, but then the lockdown came in, so I didn't really have a chance to do so. But they always told me that the league here is so competitive and the people here are nice and stuff like that, that make me to decided to come here.
Gaf Toni smach gyda namasach gehéin gus cluich gan an Alba, agus hain dóchas gyda the heulas taich do rinnevid game ball-coise an ban an the Hong Kong.
So basically I just send some emails to a lot of clubs, and Queen's Park is one of the clubs that responds to me. And Mark is the coach Mark, he is very good, and he offered me the opportunity to come over and join the team, so I just take the chance. I'm really proud that I can be one of the Hong Kong player here. So actually I had to take this opportunity to show the youngest player in Hong Kong that we can always achieve what we wanted if we just like give some confidence to ourselves and just like go ahead. Yeah, and I think the thing that I wanted to do is like maybe make a push, like let more people in Hong Kong to know that there is women soccer in Hong Kong, so more coverage and stuff, then maybe help the growth in Hong Kong women's football. It's less physical in Hong Kong, like when you compare to the people or the players here, when I want to get the ball, I need to be really strong, need to fight like 100% to get the ball. But in Hong Kong, maybe the dynamic is more like not so emphasized on the physicality. The league here, all the teams are really like on the same page. You never know which team is gonna win until you play it. But in Hong Kong, I think this few years is better, but before the difference between the teams is really really high. Like one team can beat another team like maybe 10-0. I think this is not a really good competitiveness in a league. So in here, we need to have more, we need to work hard, even in training, because all the players in the team is really competitive. So you need to fight for to get to the starters, and yeah, that's the biggest difference.
As se bhí chéad géim maiche den na Spiders am san daving. Nach Toni dí de céir túrsan nu de chud a glasach stad iad an tésan. Han cluicheadair eadar-nàiseanta a Hong Kong a fiach dí na buanach na lorach bhá a ham cluiche, I gceann an tuíoch a gcuideamh.
I think it's quite difficult because I don't really get family or like friends here, because originally my friend that used to play for còmhla, they planned to came back on January, but because of the lockdown, they decided not to come over. So I'm just here all by myself, which is a difficult thing. But I think I really learned a lot from this experience, like how to be more independent and stuff like that. I think it's a really good experience. Before I came over, I used to work as a graphic designer or something like that in a sport company. So the boss is nice enough to let me to work as remotely. So most of the time I just work, and other time I just, because I love drawing and illustrating, so I just take some time, which is my hobby. I like to do some like cartoon side illustration and more colorful Sometimes I help to do some poster or some web or online social media illustration, etc.
Han sé ha céas blina fichiad cúteach iad bhí a cúmal fud, a chaidíon ó fiúr dí bhí a fhaingedáise de farge agus a cluich ball-coise a dhéist.
Fitness coach, sport in Queen's Park, that we got a strength and conditioning coach. So my coach, he just constantly help me to set up some program weekly. So I just stick with that, and yeah, it just kept me busy and try my best to keep my fitness. I don't really get to experience as much as I can the past few months, so it will be really exciting to get back to the field.
Debbi, the power of email to get you from Hong Kong to Queen's Park.
Yeah, no, I was sitting here thinking, did she email me? Maybe missed it, because you do receive quite a lot of emails similar to Toni's story, and I always do reply, because I think that, you know, you never know when you're potentially going to miss that special player that could potentially have a very positive impact on your squad. And it's happened to us over the last kind of like, you know, 10 to 12 years that we've had people come into the team from foreign countries that have, one, been really talented, but also had a huge impact in terms of bringing a different culture into the team.
So you'll understand the kind of integration part of it, of having this player come from a different country, a completely different culture, and bring them into Scottish football. But I mean, for Toni just now, during a pandemic, it's a huge move, great determination, but like she was saying, she doesn't have any friends or family here, and during a pandemic when you can't really legally see anyone indoors, you can meet people outdoors, that must be so hard.
I think it must be extremely tough. You know, over the last kind of 4 months, it's crossed my mind on several occasions around about players, you know, from other clubs similar that are similar in Toni's situation, that have moved to Scotland, don't have any kind of friends or family that can help support them, you know, and the reality to what they expected is very, very different to what has actually happened. So it must be extremely tough, but I know that the clubs have been doing a fantastic job to support those players and to make sure that they're okay on a kind of daily, weekly basis.
For those who might not understand how it works, what happens when you bring someone in from abroad? What will a week look like for them?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, if it was our club, I mean, it used to be a lot easier before, like, all these new regulations came in due to Brexit, etc. You know, they would just train at the same time as the players. You would usually ask a couple of players within the squad to make sure that they develop a close relationship. You would make sure that you check in with them, that the accommodation's okay, and that they're generally settling in and that they're enjoying their football. You know, as Toni mentioned there in the VT, that it's, you know, a player moving to Scottish football is very, very difficult. It'll either be the physical element or the technical element that's different. So for me, in my experience, we've had players from America and Canada come, and they've been physically very, very fit, but the technical element is slightly different to what they're used to, because they're used to using that physicality. So just really getting to know the player, build relationships with them, make sure that they're comfortable, that they're enjoying it, and that you develop them to be the best player and the best person that they can possibly be, just like any other player at a club.
And it's great to have these players want to come and develop in Scotland, and we want to have that attraction to the wider world that, hey, come and look at our football and come and play it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the quality of the product of the league has no doubtedly, you know, increased in value and increased in kind of popularity. Like, you know, over the last year, 2 years, I think qualifying for the World Cup really helped that as well, put Scotland on the map. And I think, you know, as well, Scotland is a fantastic place to live too. So it can be a great place to come and experience a different culture, not just the football element, but living in a city like Edinburgh or Glasgow. You know, I'm maybe a wee bit biased.
No, Toni mentioned the people.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, you know, for me, we had a player, Nicola Mawson, who came to us, who studied at Edinburgh University for 5 years. And, you know, Scotland will always be a huge part of our life. Spartans will be a huge part of our life. And I think, you know, to have that impact on someone is a beautiful thing. Because
it can be that worry up in Scotland anyway. And I'm sure you experience it within Spartans and all the other teams too, that players, we do lose a lot of players to England.
Yep. And other countries, yeah. And to be honest with you, I think that will continue because, you know, the amount of money that these clubs, especially in the English Premier League, that they can offer is a lot more than what our current status is. So you're always going to be fighting that competition. You see it in the men's game. That still happens. You know, there's players in the men's game that go to English football clubs because the money's better and maybe the prestige is seen as being at a higher level. So we need to close that gap as best we possibly can.
And like we did mention briefly earlier, SWPL 2 is still suspended. It's so unfortunate that Toni's come over. She's only managed to play 4 games, but SWPL 2, there's so much competition in there just now.
Yeah, there is, and you know, I feel sorry for SWPL 2. You know, the working group that I was part of in terms of trying to get both leagues back together always went in with emphasis that it was both leagues. Financially, it's just not been possible to be able to support both, and we had to make the decision around about whether it's both or nothing, or one in SWPL 2 maybe have to wait just that slightly bit longer. But yeah, a fantastic league, very exciting teams. You know, when you're looking at who could potentially get promoted, you're not seeing it in the same sense as what you maybe did a couple of years ago. They're actually coming in and they're going to be able to compete at that level. And, you know, as Toni said as well, you don't know who's going to win the games. You know, sometimes I look at the fixtures on a Sunday and the results and I'm like, how did that happen? But that's a really positive thing, and I think that makes it a more enjoyable and competitive experience for the players, which is what they want.
Absolutely, it is so exciting. So hopefully we'll see Toni and the rest of SWPL 2 back soon.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed, thank you. Ha megan Keith a cosnig an bhí hain an roi tar-dhùthaich agus bharrachd. Fai bunig dúis gematrich moest nog in pandemic a chai toliche gewel coimhead trenig ag amanúra ha Spartans Debbi haas an taf.
Yn nyddi hosi diacre iantach megan Keith yn bliana, di fi y bwyn chug reis yn rwy idd ffig yn fi a cluinnidh. Nys y stad y hwla sian, nid y noch y pandemic.
It was kind of abrupt end to the racing season, but I guess I got a good number of races in before we had to stop, so I kind of took my opportunities where I could. So I at least felt good about that I'd raced where I could, and then when we couldn't, there was not much I could do about that. I kept on training like I would if there was kind of things going on, and there were virtual races we could run, which Scottish Athletics had set up. So that was good to kind of mimic a race, so you could get you could know how fit you were. So they were really good for keeping us going over the summer. I felt really lucky that because all you need is your shoes and you can go. So I felt really lucky that we were never restricted in that way.
Ha coach Ross Cairns iddi fi y cwmal megan fyd trwy'n glasig, na fi y torsiach at trenig idd line.
He kept on writing everyone's training up like normal, which is pretty impressive because there's a lot of people in our group, and at one point last year we did a virtual relay, so everyone in the kind of the wider training group got put into teams and we all had to go and run on our own, and then our times got combined, so that was quite a fun, kind of just a bit of a different thing. You wouldn't normally get to do something like that, so that kept us all going in the last summer, I think that was. Just kind of something to look forward to kind of break up the kind of the everyday keeping going.
A stewer, mae ieddig hawl bi megan y dog anolhau a stewi blin y ie y gael for bwy y pandemic.
Plans is just after summer I'll hopefully start uni like normal. I'm hoping it will be more normal than everyone seemed to get this year, so not too much online school. But yeah, I've just had a gap year this year with all the uncertainty about uni. I decided I'd rather just stay at home and see what comes of it. And I work at a special needs charity for kids in one of the local schools. So that's been a really fun way of kind of something a bit different than just working in the supermarket like I thought I might be doing. So at least that's given me a bit of a fun, different experience my gap year, even if it's not the travelling the world you might have hoped for.
San dúlach, chu meid an ára díadach mar a chríochnaí le bhí a buan chuige den Ngeran ag lúchar Scain.
There was another little kind of 3 or 4 weeks of where racing opened up again. So again, I took my opportunities where I could, and I got, I think it was 3 or 4 races in over some kind of back-to-back weekends, and that was good. Just kind of get to. There's nothing you can do to there's no like other way of getting to be on the cross-country course with 20 other people other than getting to do it. So virtuals don't give you that fun. So the head-to-head was nice to get back out there, even if it was just for a couple of races and then back to on our own again. But no, it was a really good way to test yourself.
Há darna glasig éid céalachu gan bachár farpas an ré is statú a dhile. Agus ha meid gan a coimhead go déadach blian na dávíle sa na ríchid, nó the bhíos coimhead, bharrachd gúis in a h-aon.
And it's back to on our own, and I think might be some virtual races coming up, but for the next few months I think there won't be too many opportunities for racing. The first part of the year I've got no idea what's going to happen, but I hope if anything else I can do some kind of time trials and see hopefully I can improve on my kind of times from last year and the year before, and then hopefully to the end of the year, if things are looking all right, cross-country season might go ahead, and the European cross-country championships in December would be my ultimate goal. If they can go forward, I'd really like to put myself in a position to get selected for that, but just got to kind of keep training in the hope that it'll happen and wait and see.
Debbi, for so many people in all aspects of life, but focusing on sport, like we kind of saw from Megan there, before the pandemic, things were going so well, momentum was there, wins were there, and then all of a sudden it's just like completely knocked on its head and stopped. It's so difficult to deal with.
Really difficult to deal with, and I think it's even harder when it's not a team sport. She'll have her own team of like coaches and people that she'll work with on like a weekly basis, but you know, when you've got other teammates and players, I think it's maybe slightly easier to have that greater level of support around you. But in individual sport, it can be lonely at the best of times, never mind, you know, when a pandemic's kind of flung at you. So real admiration for her.
And real admiration as well, seeing that she did come back in that small period where the races did start again, and there she is getting the win. So, I mean, to have that dedication and to keep up her fitness levels throughout what has been a really hard lockdown again is admirable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just shows how strong she is mentally and how determined she is to be able to succeed. A real winner's mindset there, and motivating herself to make sure that, you know, she stays physically fit but can also compete at the highest level. So yeah, definitely credit to her.
And like Megan said, it's as easy as picking up your shoes and go. Is that what you said to your players when you're trying to keep them active?
Yeah, I think, you know, yeah, it's just, you know, get your kit on, get ready and let's go kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, there's been so many different challenges in the last 12 months that, you know, things are so different to what normality was. And I'm fairly certain, you know, we all won't take that for granted going forward.
Well, Megan did touch on normality, I mean, taking this year out before going to uni, but when uni does start, just craving that normality again, like you've just said, is that what you're really wanting?
I think everybody wants that. I think that we'll return to what our normality was, you know, pre-COVID. No, I think quite a lot of things will potentially be different. Don't ask me what, but I'm just setting myself up for that because we've had to deal with such a fluid situation over the last 12 months. So I think, yeah, my hope is that, you know, the majority of things return back to normal and that we can just get back to how life was.
Well, there are so many virtual sessions that you can do and you can cope with and you can stay motivated for. How are things with Spartans? I mean, like we were just saying, this lockdown, it's been hard, it's been difficult. it was over the winter when it was dark and so cold and so wet. How have you kept up that motivation, or did it fall off and you've had to start again with pre-season?
Yeah, I mean, we tried a couple of different things. It was interesting what was being said earlier about the virtual race, where we were going to do a virtual kind of Zoom run with the team, but then it didn't particularly work out
on FaceTime
because it's too dark. Yeah, and so anyway, that got binned. But yeah, just trying to be creative, and also just trying and speak to the players and just make sure that they're okay. But this lockdown's certainly been more difficult than the first lockdown. I think the first lockdown it was more a kind of novelty. And probably to a certain extent people enjoyed maybe a wee bit of a break from football and getting to spend some more time with their family. However, this one I think people were just, you know, I would say the last 2 to 3 weeks have probably been the most difficult for us. You know, I've noticed in the Zoom calls and sessions that the banter and the talking hasn't been at the same levels as what it previously has. So yeah, the return to football has came at a good time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But what have you been doing to get creative? What's involved in that?
I think it's just making sure that you involve the players. You know, like we've spoken to the players a couple of times around about, do we do a quiz instead of a fitness session? Do we not do a fitness session this night just because people are maybe picking up soft tissue injuries? Because it's very different football training to actually doing Zoom sessions 2-3 times a week. You know, we found that in lockdown 1 that players were getting a lot of injuries around their kind of joints because they're not used to running on hard surfaces as much. So for us, like, we made the academy available, our facility, to the players, that they could come down individually one at a time and they could run on the Astro whenever we were open. And quite a few players have done that on a regular basis and found that beneficial. And you know, because we've got 2 pitches, one can be on one pitch, one can be on the other, and they can, you know, meet up and just have a small chat and discussion and see people. So we're quite fortunate in that way. But it has been difficult this time to just try and mix things up and just try and keep everybody motivated, because it has been such a long period of time where it kind of felt like there was very little hope. So that phone call that I made on, I think it was Monday night, was very well received by the players.
I can imagine, but you do have what will probably be a very intense 4 weeks now on the run up to the first match. How are you feeling about that? How are the players feeling about that? What's going to be involved in this pre-season?
Yeah, I mean, as I said previously, I think it would have been a slightly longer period, but time is against us. You know, I think 4 weeks is certainly better than 3 weeks. But we have to get the load right, because, you know, going into the second round and the third round of fixtures, there will be a lot of midweek games as well. And our players don't have the luxury of, you know, just going to training and then going home, cooking a meal, resting, recovering, going back to training. You know, they've got work, they've got jobs, they've got university, they've got college, etc. So we need to make sure we get the load right and that we don't overload too early, but we also have to make sure that they're in peak physical condition too. So, you know, we'll work with our kind of sports therapists, our sports scientists, our strength and conditioning guys, just to see where we need to be in terms of a return on the 4th of April, but then going forward to be able to complete the league.
Great, well, so much to do. So thank you so much for joining us again, Debbi.
My pleasure.
And finally, good news. It is good news, and we're still looking forward to having football back.
Yeah, I think everybody is, and hopefully everybody will enjoy watching it and get right behind women's football.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, Sineir son program Eile, and na hwyrus by i'r cam suya hockey Alba cas Cuthbert's Coleraine. Cuide has sin na táirsiúca programúr a chula seachgain mar sin Jankínseach go bhfuil se mar leid le YouTube agus cúteach han program a dhéire gacín ar BBC iPlayer. Ma had dat san bíon dul an na SWPL an ban bhí sin na bréim begin an seo ar 3 seascad. Mar sin live an dras.